everyone, and welcome back to Anything Joe's, a collaborative journey through the world of G.I. Joe. My name is Greg Engel.
And I'm Jaren Decker.
And we'll be your host today. Today on Anything Joe's, we're going to talk about some recent news. We're going to talk about some recent acquisitions. We're going to take some mail. So let's get stuck straight into it and see what's happening in the world of G.I. Joe. Hasbro's Selfie Series action figures will be available in the U.S. starting Friday. So if you're listening to this on release day, that is just a couple days away. This comes to us from Gizmodo.com. Fans can choose to become one of 14 different action figures, including Star Wars and G.I. Joe characters. Back in July, Hasbro revealed that it had partnered with the 3D printing company Formlabs to allow San Diego Comic-Con attendees to create a custom action figure with their own likeness. Availability was very limited, but today Hasbro was finally revealed when anyone can order their own Selfie Series figure at a price tag that's unfortunately a bit higher now. So starting on September 30th, this Friday, you can download the Hasbro mobile app on either Android or iOS, and you can take some pictures of your face. And then you can click around and put that face on one of several choices, including the Stormtrooper, an X-Wing pilot, Princess Leia, the Mandalorian, Black Panther, Iron Man, Spider-Man, Black Widow, a Red Power Ranger, the Pink Power Ranger, Snake Eyes, Scarlet, and a male or female Ghostbuster. We've been looking at this for a while. We've been talking about it for a while. We've seen some finished results that I think are pretty good. But the price has jumped up from the $60 price tag originally specified in July. Now it's $80 each. Jaren, my question to you, you going to get one of these? And did the price influence that decision or hold you back in any way?
Okay, when they first announced it, I was 100% no-brainer in. Even at $60, I mean, I didn't know how many I would get, but I was in. Going up to 80 has really tempered me on getting multiple, but I will definitely have to get at least one. I don't know which figure I will get, just because, like, for me, like, as much as I like Snake Eyes, I would have rather they put it on a Duke or Flint or Breaker body. That way I could work it into the universe. I know I'm not Snake Eyes, so I would just be buying it and then doing a head swap, which I guess is what I'll end up doing anyway. I could sit here and say, no, there's no way I'm doing this, but I would be lying. I have wanted to do something like this for a long time.
Yeah, it's like, it really is bridging the dream for me. But I mean, who didn't want to be their own action figure as a kid and quite possibly still now as an adult? I agree with everything you said. I'm still in. I do think the results that they've shown are very promising. I mean, I don't know if they'll all come out looking this good, but I think I think they can. Yeah, I think if your pictures are solid and you make the correct choices when you're like designing them, like for example, you can't have glasses on, which is something, that's a big factor for me. So you have to design it as close as can. I think you place the hair afterwards also.
That was going to be my big question, was how the hair would work.
Requires customers to make several different decisions, including selecting a hairstyle that best matches their own from one of 50 different options, their hair color, their facial hairstyle from one of 14 different options, and then the action figure. So, I mean, it's like no big deal, right? It's like designing a Sims character or basically any video game character creation. You're just trying to find the one that, matches you the closest. I'm sure it'll be real difficult for me to find my hair pattern since I'm a completely bald man. It shouldn't be too challenging. They should actually give me a discount because they don't even have to mess with that part. Either that or they should put twice the detail into my beard. So, but yeah, again, everything you said I agree. I want one because it's such a crazy novelty. Like, it's not like you're going to collect a whole series of these. I want one. I do want the Snake Eyes. And again, to mirror what you said, would have made way more sense to just use Grunt's body or Breaker's body and be like Green Shirt or Steel Brigade, something like that, where makes more sense that you're a little bit more trooper. I mean, it would be a wild reveal to find out after all these years that Snake Eyes is actually me. It really frames some of the origins in a better light. But yeah, I do one of these. I'm interested in seeing when the public starts to get these in hands, what's the percentage of people that are actually pleased with these? I'd like to see some of the ones that maybe don't come out correctly. I think that would be pretty funny. I don't know if they have quality control for that or not, but I guarantee there's going to be some pretty goofy looking ones that show up.
I hope there's a serious quality control, because if I pay $80 for my face and my face is upside down, I'm gonna cry.
Maybe I was thinking more like you'll look like Clayface, like your face will be melting or something. But maybe they have a system in place where if you're unhappy, you get like a discount on replacement, or I don't know. I'm sure they have something in line for people that are displeased with how they turn out overall. Anyway, that launches Friday. It's just a couple days away, and I am really excited for it. I won't be able to order mine until the following week. I'm going to have to wait a payday because I just got back from a comic convention, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But yes, I'm in on this. I want to see it. I'm excited that it's finally here. I hope it delivers results as promising as what they are showing. And if that means it costs an extra $20, then all right, you got me. I'll pay it. But I expect I expect that kind of a result. That body doesn't cost you anything. They're left over from years of not selling these figures. So I'm paying $80 for that head, and so it better be worth it. Anyway, that's the Selfie series. Starts Friday. If you're planning on getting one, leave us a comment or shoot us an email. Let us know your hopes and dreams and what you think it's going to turn out to be. I look forward to seeing how everybody's is. We'll have our own little army of Snake Eyes. Or Scarlets, I'm not judging. Why would you throw that noggin on? HIYA Toys finally shows off their 1/18th scale Snake Eyes action figure. So we knew for a while now that HIYA had grabbed the options for these and they were working on something, but they've been pretty tight-lipped about it, just like normally in this situation. Well, now we've finally seen the results. It's a 4-inch figure. I mean, we're talking modern line compatible Snake Eyes. The difference between this figure and the regular modern figures is this one is crazy detailed. It looks exceptional. I mean, like, the detail on it for this scale is unheard of. If the reality is anything like these images, then this is like a whole new way for me, because I'm a big modern collector, and this is basically filling that gap and then some. It's taking a lot of the cutting edge technology and I think really implementing it. This figure obviously is not quite held to any strict Snake Eyes design. His chest plate and like vest is a very unique look for him, but I do think it is borrowing a lot from the classified line. The sword especially looks really reminiscent of the classified line, and also a Arashikage logo placement like on the belt. And there he's got like a little, instead of on his like forehead, this is one that's kind of like where his collar is at, and they've got some just like some great posing. Basically looks just like the classified series photography. It's just, they've really put him in a great environment. It really makes him shine as a design character. Jaren, what's your take on a brand new G.I. Joe line?
When I first saw this, I thought it was just another of the classified. I mean, it looks almost identical to the classified, in my opinion. When you really, if you really put them side by side, you could tell differences, but I think they definitely took heavy inspiration from the classified. A new line, I mean, it's different. It's a little more pricey. You're getting a lot better looking quality. I mean, if it comes in like this figure looks, I don't know how people aren't going to buy them like crazy, even at the little bit increased price. Going back to the well with Snake Eyes, I mean, you have to, I guess, but it's a lot, man. It's great for Joe collectors. It really is. It's phenomenal. But man, like, at some point I have to start picking and choosing, because they're really starting to lay it on me.
As a person that collects the modern line as like his number one priority, this is like a really high ranking thing. It really fills a void that the retro wave being canceled, I was really bummed out about it. I still am. And so I'm very excited for the potential of this line. But yes, unfortunately, we have to start with Snake Eyes yet again, because he is the Wolverine of the team. He is the guy that apparently sells the most product. I don't know how collectors are still buying Snake Eyes with excitement after all these years, but I guess results don't lie. So my hope for this line is that it tries something new, cover some ground that has not been covered. Like if they were to follow this up with a Don Marino, but he shut the front door because that we're going to do a whole episode on it, I would be out of my mind, Chaz. Just in general, any modern characters that we haven't gotten yet, because we got pretty close to like a really robust lineup. So I'm really just looking for characters that I didn't get. But obviously, with the new like detail that these figures bring, and I get that they're probably going to be slightly out of scale with the modern. They look like they might be a little bit bigger. At the very least, I'm looking for characters that I don't have 150 versions of, like Snake Eyes. Like, if the next figure is Storm Shadow, I'm again going to be like, well, this looks great, and I want it, but I have so, there's a certain list of characters, like 5 or 6 characters, where you're just like, here we go again, another Destro, another Baroness, another Cobra Commander. I'm ready for the everybody else's.
Another roadblock.
Yeah, basically what we were starting to get into with the retro wave when it ended, like Grunt, that exceptional Scarlet, which I would love to see what these guys could do with something like that. That was what was starting to really get me like pumped up for what was getting ready to show, like kind of even the B- guys. It's part of what gets me the most excited about classified reveals is that I always look forward to the stuff that I have not seen 100 times over. That's why I was so pumped about Kamakura. There's a lot of characters that just need some love after all this time. Snake Eyes is not one of them. It's worth mentioning that the price that HIYA Toys has on their website is, I think, a little high. I think that's simply because you're buying from them and they're an international shipper. I think if we wait until this shows up stateside for pre-order, it'll probably be closer to the $20 to $25 range. They put out an exact MSRP and I just don't have it in front of me, but it's definitely not what these guys are charging. $30. That's before you try to have it. You pay the shipping fee. These will be pretty feasible to own, without breaking the bank. Just buy one less Crimson Guard classified and you'll be able to get something new and original. So we'll continue to keep a look out on these, but these reveal photos definitely caught my eye. It was something that I was like really talking about a lot that day with other people, and I'm still pretty excited about it. I'm excited for these pre-orders to open up on the States so I can go ahead and put one in and not have to worry about it. They're showing it's expected to release in March 2023, so it's really not that far away when all things considered. So yeah, we'll check back in. You better believe as soon as I can get one of these guys in my hands, I'm gonna, because I am very interested in, this could be potentially the future of the 4-inch line. So yeah, I'm all invested in it. Diamond Select Toys announces a new Mini-Mates collector set. We're taking it back to the VHS days. Snake Eyes, Scarlet, and Storm Shadow team up to take on the Cobra scientist Dr. Biggles Jones in the Ninja Force VHS Mini-Mates box set. New York Comic Con 2022 exclusive. Pre-order at their website. So the Mini-Mates line continues, and they're releasing a 4-pack, which is kind of how they've been putting them out into these sets, except this is all new stuff. It is shaped like a VHS. That's really the only relevance. It's not specifically referring to a G.I. Joe episode or an actual VHS that was released. The cover is reminiscent to the Marvel run issue 135, which has the the Ninja Force era Snake Eyes kind of guns blazing in the front, and then Scarlet and Storm Shadow in the back. It's a pretty faithful. They cut out Jabang and nunchucks and dojos since they are not included in this set, but other than that, it's pretty much a really faithful version of that cover, and it's very cute. I mean, it's like good original art. The back of the case says, when the Joe team needs something done quickly and quietly, they call it Ninja Force. Snake Eyes, Storm Shadow, and Scarlet can silently neutralize an opponent with their ninja fighting moves and deadly weapons. But is Ninja Force enough to defeat a threat like Cobra when they get their hands on Dr. Biggles Jones' new railgun technology? That's pretty much verbatim the plot of this era of the comic as well. Dr. Biggles Jones was a short-lived, although would return at some point. She's just a female scientist that works for Cobra. She just wears a lab coat. She's kind of like a Dr. Venom fill-in, more or less. But is a little bit of a fan favorite because she did make a return in the IDW run, at least for a while. Shows up more and more often, it seems like, at least in the roster. The 4 figures that we mentioned, it's a Ninja Force Snake Eyes, a pretty unpopular suit, although I think it's a fine suit. It's the Ninja Force Storm Shadow, which we've seen in a classified version recently. It's like that black and white mix. Ninja Force Scarlet, which is like the green and yellow. She looks like she has an alternate hair option, which I think is really cool. And then Dr. Biggles Jones in her kind of her blue Cobra outfit with the white lab coat. Pretty good set. It's only $30, so it's not exactly like breaking the bank for a New York Comic Con. Pre-orders open Thursday, October 6th at 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I am going to assume this is a shared exclusive with New York Comic Con, not otherwise, why bother telling us about it? Jaren, I know you didn't buy the mini-mates, and I would be hard. I know you probably, I'm going to predict that you will think that these are cool, but that you just can't justify buying them. How close am I?
You're 100% right. And like, if I could buy just the Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, I would do it. But I don't care for this outfit on Scarlet, and I'm glad that Dr. Biggles Jones is a fan favorite, but she seems, at least in mini-mate forms, like the most generic scientist you could ever have.
I'm really surprised that you don't like this Scarlet outfit, because you are notorious for picking the worst outfits and then defending them. As somebody that is like as in Star Brigade mode recently, I feel like this Scarlet is right up your alley. It was a horrible vintage figure. I don't have a specific beef with this outfit. It is a product of the time, but the figure itself was horrible because they slammed in a ninja action, and so it gave her these like huge thighs. It was, I mean, pretty insulting for all of the Ninja Force figures of that era. They did release a modern figure of this Ninja Force Scarlet in a very similar box set. It was one of the like exclusives that the Collectors Club did. It was a shared exclusive with the Transformers Club as well, because it had Transformers in it, but it was like the first modern Ninja Force Scarlet, the first ever Dr. Biggles Jones figure, and some Transformers. Who cares about them?
I think my problem is that it looks like she's just trying to be Poison Ivy. And
yeah,
it's just hard for me to see it without thinking, oh, Poison Ivy.
I get that. Well, it doesn't help that you're looking at a mini-mate, which literally could be just about anybody in 2 moves. I could change that character and make him look like a minion, probably.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the news. Let's switch over to our semi-main story, which is my trip to the Cincinnati Comic Expo.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear about it. We have not talked about this yet at all.
No, we haven't talked about this at all. So, I made plans to go to Cincinnati Comic Expo, and I'll be up front. I was only going because Larry was going to be there, and I had 2 objectives. First one was Jaren and I both missed out on a sketch when we went to if you listen to our Lexington Con Expo, the list we were there like within 30 minutes of opening, the list was completely filled up. Okay, no, that's fine. Larry has raised his prices since then he went up to $150 at Terrificon, which I was not at, but has come back down to $100 in recent times. Second reason I was there is because Larry has recently shown off a Fort Wadsworth challenge coin that he had created himself to give out, I guess, at cons, and I want one very badly. So I was like, if I get nothing else but that, still mission successful, because who knows if I'll ever have another opportunity to get one before they're gone. Okay, so I'm at the con. I will say before I get into this part of it that I'd met some other great artists that had worked on G.I. Joe, especially like the later IDW stuff. I met Jay Fosgett, who did some of the like really cartoony covers for the First Strike series, which is part of the Revolution Hasbro crossover, where all the properties came together. I met a gentleman named, I think that his name was Anthony Marquis. He did a variant cover for the $6 Million Man vs. G.I. Joe cover, and was very surprised to see it. So it was said he didn't think he'd ever signed it. And I believe that's it. I brought 2 books for Larry, because if you're not familiar with Larry's signing policies right now, it's 2 items for free if personalized, and then it's like $10 for every book after that, or $20 if you don't get it personalized. It's like a whole schematic depending on how you want to get your stuff signed, but essentially you can get 2 things signed for free as long as it's okay that he makes them to you. That way he knows you're not going to sell them, that you're a real fan. So that's what I did. I brought it. I had a variant cover from like the last year that I thought was really good, which I'll show on our YouTube channel. And I also brought the 40th anniversary Silent Interlude reprint that just came out, where he redid the cover, and it's got a unique artist on every page. So I got him to sign those two things. I talked about this a little bit on my Twitter channel, but in between Lexington and Cincinnati, Larry has started selling prints for the first time since ever that I'm aware of. And the prints that he had were he has a print of that same 40th anniversary special Silent Interlude without any logo or text on it. He had a print that was from Mike Zeck. I don't know if he worked a deal out with Mike or Mike just gave him some, but he had a stack of. It's the cover to Special Missions #1, but and I bought this from Mike back when I saw him several years back. It's been recolored by him digitally, and it looks almost like a whole new cover. Really, really sings. He's done a handful of covers like these, and they all look really, really very good. Anyway, he was selling these prints also, and they were already pre-signed by Mike. That's part of the reason I knew they were definitely the same print. And then the last print he had was a print of Camp Greer, is just pretty elaborate looking blueprint that he's drawn out. And so that was the one I picked up. It was the last one they had. And it was signed by the other person that had worked on it. And that there's a spot where Larry can sign his name specifically, as it's a part of the print, which I thought was very cool. So anyway, I got to Larry, and first thing I did was look at the sketch list, and the sketch list is at 27. And this is probably at 15, 20 minutes after open, tops. We were there very early. We were just standing in line to get in. So I'm like, hey, are you taking any more commissions? And he's like, well, how many are on there? I said, well, you got 27. And he said, well, you can put it on, but at this point, I don't, there's no guarantees. Might have to do mail order to, complete the transaction. Now, this is a big deal because Jaren will vouch for this. We tried to get a mail order in Lexington, and he was pretty much just like, nah, I don't, I'm not making any money off this. I don't do these. I'm just doing these for fans, and I don't want to break myself, just to get a bunch of them out. I totally get that. I'm not attacking Larry here. I'm just, this is just his POV. And we were bummed, but understanding. And so I was shocked to be like, oh, yes, that would be great, actually. So we went off and did our, spent our day, did our shopping, met our artist, blah, blah, blah. Came back when Larry didn't have a lot of people there. And I said, Larry, we're getting ready to leave. My name is dead last. Either no one else signed up after me or he cut it off. But he was nice enough to at least let me sign up at that point. I said, if we're going to do the mail order part of it, then I want to go ahead and make sure we're on the same page. Do you want me to pay you now? Blah, blah, blah. He said, no, you'll pay me when it's done. He said, write what you want and your address and make sure it's very legible. And I can vouch for this also. He's said publicly many times, hey, I can't read this guy's address. I can't get a hold of this person. I'm just putting it on eBay, where he makes more money than what it would have cost anyway. So I very carefully am writing out my address. I put my email. I put my phone number. I mean, Larry and I are like Facebook friends, even though he would not be able to pick me out of a lineup. He can message me in numerous ways. And the character that I picked after much debate was Stalker. And he asked me if I wanted a regular Stalker, like Vietnam era. And I picked a regular Stalker. No, I have no specific reasoning behind that. I didn't expect him to ask, and I had already pictured a regular Stalker in my head. I've only got one other commission of Stalker, and it was a bit of a freebie, so this will be a nice addition. I really thought for a long, long time about having him draw Dawn or Helix, two characters that I love, but Larry's sketches of female characters often, I feel like, come up a little short. Again, I'm not, Larry's got a lot of stuff that impedes his ability to draw, including severe arthritis in his hands. So I'm not taking a pot shot at him. It's just I think it's easier for him and can do better work on characters that he draws a lot. I had him do a Snake Eyes for me several years back, and it is by far heads and tails above anything else that he's ever done. It looks incredibly detailed, and again, that's probably because just like we've seen 150 figures, I'm sure Larry has drawn thousands and thousands of Snake Eyes over the years. So we ironed all that out. We got a plan in place, and he'll reach out to me at some point, and then it'll be on the route. The coin, however, I asked about it, and it was clear that I was the first person that had talked to him about it, because he was like, oh, I left him in the hotel room, and I'll probably just bring him down tomorrow, which obviously is devastating because I wasn't going to be there on Sunday. So, and again, I I'm not attacking Larry. Larry pulls out his personal bag is looking through it. Like if he just has one on him, he was going to let me have it. So I appreciate that. And actually, just between me and the hundreds of people that listen to this show, I'm optimistic that when he messages me, I can be like, "Hey, I asked you about this coin. Can you just throw one in the envelope? Whatever. I don't know if he's charging for them, but I'll be glad to pay him. I'll trade him one of my coins around here if that's what it comes to. I really want that coin. Is what I'm saying. But I'm extremely excited to get another sketch, and I have no issues with what Larry is charging. If Larry says his art and his time is worth $100, then you got it. I had already decided if it was going to be $150 at this show. I wasn't going to pay it not because I thought it was too much, but simply because it would have taken too much out of my overall budget to spend at the comic show. And I have other sketches from Larry, so I'm greedy. I just like Larry might stop doing the con circuit at any time, and I want to have as much stuff from him as possible while it's available. He never did cons when I was growing up. It wasn't until maybe about 10 to 12 years ago that he was doing cons that were actually local to me. So I'll scoop up everything I can get from then on. So that's basically, oh, sorry, there is one other thing. I did have a small chance to talk to Larry. I try to always have one question to ask Larry because I don't want to monopolize his time, but I've always got something on my head. I'm always thinking about something G.I. Joe related. So the question that I asked Larry is something that I wanted to talk to him about the last time, but don't know how to socially interact with humans ever, especially not ones that I hold in high regard. So sometimes it takes me a while to get it together. Anyway, the question that I asked him was, Larry, do you have to do a lot of research and stay on top of a lot of things that are happening in the military to ensure that the stuff that you're writing in the book is both kind of anchored in reality in terms of like the technology of the weapons and the protocol that the military goes through? Like as that has evolved and changed over the last 40 years, have you had to keep on abreast of that to study it? Or is it more just like it's something that you enjoy, so you're aware of it regardless? Which I personally think is a pretty good question. And Larry said basically the latter. He was like, things change, especially in terms of weapon technology, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he was basically like, but I also really enjoy it. So it's a little bit of both. Yes, I do the research, but I also am interested in this stuff. So sometimes I'm just reading stuff for leisure and am learning about it like that. And then Larry proceeded to launch into a long discussion about various things, mostly historical trivia about how the government has mistreated its soldiers over the years, starting with Agent Orange and many other. I wish you had been there, Jaren, because you have a better anchor on like historical detail, because he's asking me things. I'm being honest. He'll be like, have you heard of, I can't even recall what it was now. This is how bad I am at it. He was like, have you ever recalled the Great Eight or some like historical group of soldiers? And I was like, I have heard of them, even though I can't remember them here on the show. He's like, do you know what happened to them? And I said, in all honesty, no, I do not. And then he proceeded to tell me about how these guys did a bunch of stuff for the government. They were promised a bunch of rewards, and then they just basically like lined them up and shot them. Bunch of really uplifting stories like that from Larry, where he's talking about the government kind of doing them wrong, and that doesn't bother me at all. I enjoy listening to Larry talk. If Larry wants to talk about how Agent Orange, killed a bunch of people in Vietnam and the government denied it, which I'm familiar with. My father served in Vietnam. I know, trust me, I know all about it. But anyway, if that's what he wants to talk about, if he wants to teach me history stuff, I'm here for it, dude. I literally got down on one knee, propped myself up like on his table with my arm, and I'm just like, yeah, man, as long as there's no line and you want to talk, I want to listen. So that was pretty great for me. I, again, just enjoy hearing him discuss whatever's of interest to Larry is of interest to me. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And there was a lot of Cincinnati Comic Expo was really good. There were almost no G.I. Joe toys there at all, and everything I saw was either like so obscure I was like, this sucks, I don't want this, or it was overpriced. So I did not buy any G.I. Joe stuff there. They had a lot of G.I. Joe comics because Larry was there, but again, I didn't see anything really rare or anything that I just like had to have. We'll make a note that this is the second time in a month that I've seen copies of Tales of G.I. Joe #1 prominently displayed on people's back walls, like as if they're like super key books. So I don't know, Tales of G.I. Joe #1, Jaren, is just a reprint of #1 that came out later on. Yeah. And there's nothing really special about it other than I think the cardstock on it is better, the coloring on it is better, but it has certainly been eclipsed at this point with, digital technology since then. So, I probably for real saw it about half a dozen times. I would be like, oh, cool. Amazing Spider-Man 300, first Venom. Batman Adventures, blah, 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 first Harley Quinn, $300 or $400 books. Tales of G.I. Joe #1, and it would be like $50 or something. And I'm like, what the hell? So, yeah, that's the second time I've had an encounter where I've seen people pushing that book in multiple spots and with no real understanding unless people just don't want to pay for, what a original #1 is valued at. I don't know. I don't get it. If anybody out there has insight on why Tales of G.I. Joe #1 would be going up in value, I'd love to hear it, because I can't pierce that veil. I don't understand it.
I've seen a little bit of discussion on a few of the Facebook groups that I'm in. People talking about mentioning the same thing.
Do they have any theories as to why?
I'm seeing a lot of people just throwing things at the wall, but I mean, I really don't know.
I don't know. I don't get it. I guess if you're a diehard collector of the comic, I'm telling you, something's going on. Maybe scoop it up if you have a chance to get one on the cheap.
My personal theory is that I guess because of G.I. Joe 300 being the end, people are trying to buy up anything they think is going to be of value and just planning on an inevitable rise in price.
I wanted to talk to him about 301, but I felt like maybe he wasn't supposed to talk about it. I think that it's considered kind of, even if he's not under some kind of NDA, it's considered like a courtesy to not like blow IDW's big moment to get their last cash grab on the quote unquote final issue. And then once they've sold all those variant covers, they all go, oh, here's the new publisher, and we're starting with 301. And then everybody gets a share of the pie. So I didn't want to put him on the spot and make it awkward. I did, I talked with our friend of the show, Gary from Chaplain's Assistance Motor Pod, and we had been talking for like a week about the comic. He was one of the people that reached out to me when I was like, somebody that's keeping up with the comic, please talk to me about it. There's only 3 issues left. And I enjoy that water cooler discussion. And Gary has really stepped up to the plate. And we were discussing Laura 343, which, if you're not caught up on the book, is a female Crimson Guard that has kind of flip-flopped on sides over the last couple of months, and continues to do so. And I was just saying that with such a short time left, I really felt like her character development was in need of a push. Like, she's either going to join the Joes or she's going to become a full-fledged Cobra, but she needs to get out of that outfit and get a code name. And so I was going to ask him, well, I didn't think to ask him about it until Gary pointed it out that would have been a great question. So I'm going to put that in the books for next time, unless it gets resolved in the next 3 issues. All right, so let's move on to recent acquisitions, because we have some stuff that we've picked up lately that is of interest. Hey guys, it's me, Editor Greg, not Podcaster Greg. You might be able to tell the difference between the tone of my voice when I'm editing at 3:30 in the morning versus a normal day. So I wanted to step in real quick and provide an update. Since we recorded this episode, I did have a direct line of communication with Larry about the Fort Wadsworth Challenge coin, and he explained to me that the coin is a sort of a tradition between people that have served or are active members of the military, and that it's sort of a tradition to exchange this coin that has their unit of service. So basically, the bottom line is it's not intended for me, a non-military member. It's only intended for previously serving members or active members of the military. So I wanted to throw a little update in there so you guys don't hound him like I just did and make yourself look like a fool. And now, on to recent acquisitions.
Recent acquisitions.
Welcome to Recent Acquisitions. So, I haven't been picking up a whole lot of stuff, I gotta be honest. There is one thing that we both have kind of dipped our toe into recently that has had some pretty solid dividends, and I gotta thank Jaren for this, because he's the one that was like, I tried this and it worked, and I just kind of followed suit. Jaren, will you talk about how you discovered these guys that were shipping the newest classified wave?
So I can't remember which group it's in. It's a group on Facebook. It's a G.I. Joe group, and somebody had posted a while back that they had gotten Spirit and Freedom, it was about a couple months before everybody started to find them in stores. And that was the first one that I found that was coming in quick. And it's cmdstore.com, if I remember correctly. But they're based in Canada, and it seems like they get figures a little quicker than we do somehow. So I found somebody posting about they had received their Tomax and Zaymot and their Stalker already. So I went on the store, purchased it as a pre-order, and then within about a couple days it shipped. And I had them within a week. And so now I've got 3 figures that I now don't have to hunt down and try to chase down at a Target or Walmart or wherever.
Yeah, so when Jaren took a chance on these, Jaren, do you remember about how much this cost you to get you buy all 3, right?
I did. I bought all 3, and I think it averaged about $30 a figure plus shipping. And let me just say, it's probably been longer than a couple months, but when I bought the Spirit and Freedom, another thing that made me trust these sellers, their customer service was phenomenal. I'm sure they will never hear our episode, but I do want to give them a shout out. I ordered Spirit and Freedom. He came in and was missing a foot. Freedom was missing one of his feet. And so I just sent him an email. I was like, hey, I've already opened this. I said, but if you want me to ship it back, I can. Just tell me whatever you want to do. And they're like, oh, well, if you've already opened it, we can just ship you another Freedom. And I was like, all right, cool. And then that day they shipped out another Freedom, and I got it in a couple days. It was pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm looking at the website right now. So it looks like the set, it's Wave 10, Tomax Zaymot Stalker. The original price was $100. They have it on sale right now for $90. And then shipping to, Central US is about $13. So all in, that runs you just about $37 a figure. If at the full price, it would be probably closer to $35 on the sale price right now. So $35 including ship, it means you're paying about $10 extra per figure. So Jaren was like, hey, I got these and they worked. And I thought, well, heck, man, at only an extra $10 to get them now, because at this time Amazon was still showing them like a year away. I thought, I'm going to go ahead and give it a shot. A little extra monies, a bit of a markup I'm okay with for early access. So I ordered them, and yeah, I'll also swear by them. I think it was probably like 5 days from order to delivery. They were here very quickly. So I was just like, holy moly, this is amazing. Well, so I took it a step further. So I ordered from a place called Star Action Figures. Star Action Figures is based in the UK, and their website is just staractionfigures.co.uk, all one word. So they had something that I wanted way more than the 3 figures in that wave. They have the Target exclusive Tiger Force Outback. And they also have the other 2 guys, the Viper and the Bat, but I frankly do not. It's been so long, I've completely lost interest in those figures. If my Target order, we'll get into this in a minute, but if my Target order doesn't go through, I don't even care anymore. It's been a year. I'm completely burnt out on it. So they had Tiger Force Outback. He was a little bit more expensive, partially because of it is truly international. But to give you an idea of what I paid, it was like $20 extra. So it was expensive to ship. It was closer to $45 for this. And it is true. That is truly the tipping point where I'm like, that's almost double, right? So, well, actually, I paid a little less because I pre-ordered it. It looks like the pre-order price based on my email was only $20. So that makes it even closer to like an actual reasonable amount. And these guys also delivered it it had a lot further to go, so it probably took closer to 10 days to arrive. But they got it out right away, and it arrived right away. It was packaged really, really well, and I opened it immediately, and it is a great figure. I mean, holy moly, it's such a solid figure. When they do the regular repaint, just like his normal V1 outfit, I'll be all over that bad boy. So that's 2 really good experiences, and as of right now, to my knowledge, neither of these figures have started shipping in the States, full stop. I think the dates on the Stalker and Tomax and Zaymot is coming up. It's like early in October. And that Outback is supposed to be early October also, but I have just about given up on pre-ordering through Target. I know we've been on both sides of the fence. They were not doing great, and then they they kind of brought it back around and made some availability. But man, I've had a credit card charge hold on my bank account for a full year now. And it has caused tremendous stress on our finances because you cannot anticipate when it falls on and pops back up, and it is brutal. So for sure, when this pre-order is done, I will not be pre-ordering with my regular bank account again. I'm going to go try to get it through Pulse first. I'll use a red card because it does not charge in the same way, or I will not pre-order it. I am just done with it. It's just, I did not expect it to be like this. A year of putting a charge card on hold for less than $100 is pretty insulting, frankly. Like, I'm good for it, or I will be if you let me know what it's going to charge. Any thoughts on that, Jaren?
I've gotten better. Let me just say, I paid a lot of money for Major Blood. I didn't pay like that eBay price, but I spent $100 on a Major Blood. That was when I was in. I was like, I'm going to get these things early. And I've calmed down on that now just because of, I mean, it's just a crapshoot, honestly. And, you know, I get that they're having issues. I get all that. But, like, I mean, these 3 Target figures we've been waiting a year on. I mean, we've had figures that we've known about for a year that we don't even know when they're coming. I mean, so there's no point for me spending $100 on one figure now, and it seems like a lot of times once you start seeing them in the overseas sellers, you're really not that far off. So you know the timing's getting a little bit better. If I can pay $30 like I did with CMD Store, if I can pay $30, $35, $40 just to not have to deal with the headache of pre-ordering, and
that's quite the sawtooth. You're like, if I could just pay $25, $30, $35, $40, $65 tops.
You know, it's $75 and under, and I'm there.
$100, $100.
Yeah. I'm not doing $100 again, but I'll do $95. No, if I can do, I'd say $40, really. If I can get $40 just to not have to deal with the hassle, not have to deal with, you know, whatever, I'll do it for figures I want. And I don't love Tomax and Zaymot, I'm going to be honest, for the classified. They just feel a little bland. They're one of the figures that I wish they would have made a little more weird, given them a little more stuff. But Stalker, I don't regret at all. I would have paid quite a bit of money. I love the Stalker figure.
I feel pretty lukewarm about that whole wave. I like the Tomax and Zaymot, but I didn't need them to be radically different. I've expressed my distaste with the color scheme on that Stalker, and that's pretty much my one sticking point. It has, I won't say it ruined the figure, but it has kind of like, I'm like, they're going to repaint this, I hope, and then that'll be the one that I'll really glom to. But that Tiger Force Outback, man, I don't regret it at all. It's probably one of the best figures they've ever put out, and I do say that with a hard bias towards Outback. The only reason I haven't canceled my Target pre-order is because I do want to have another one in the box. I'm trying to back away from one open and one sealed, but figures that I think are exceptional or are characters that I really love, I'm trying to stick with. But I would agree with everything you said about the shipping process going forward. You know, I wanted to detail this process for people that can't wait like we can't and are willing to pay a little extra. And also just the knowledge that if you follow that, what Jaren said is right. There's a little bit of like, it's like a warning sign. If they're shipping it internationally, that means it won't be that much longer before they'll start shipping domestically as well. I did double check, and it looks like that Stalker wave is set for the first week of November. So it's still a little ways out. Like if you were listening to this on the day and were like, oh, this is the first time hearing about it, I mean, go grab it. They're just $10 cheaper than I paid for it now. It's really not that bad. You certainly would beat the street date by quite a long mile.
Another thing that my problem is you see these, you see people over in Hong Kong get them, and it's so, like, I'm really big on, if I see someone have it and I know it's out, then I need it. Like the moment I see somebody post it on one of the Facebook groups or on Instagram or something, start taking pictures with it, I'm like, oh, someone got one. That means I can get one. And it's just like a rabbit hole that I fall down. So it's not something that I recommend, but especially from, I can't recommend CMD Store enough. They were phenomenal, and I will definitely purchase with them again.
Yeah, they were great. If you see what you're looking for there, I mean, I truly, it was exceptionally fast shipping. They did have great customer service. I have no complaints. So if that's something you're thinking about diving into, even just to test it, I recommend it. I think it was really good. I mean, I hate to spend more money on something I'm already spending too much money on, but I wanted to try it, having never really tried to import a toy ahead of schedule, and it worked out really well. So something I'll keep an eye on in the future. I think the only other figure that immediately pops into my mind right now is I want that Zorana, and I would pay a little extra if I could get it early. Everybody else I think I could probably hold off on.
If somebody posted a Tiger Force Recondo right now, I would have a hard time not selling a lot of stuff to try to pay for it. I love the design of that figure.
I can wait on those, but maybe it's just because my meter has been refilled between getting those and then Big Bad Toy Store fulfilling our Crimson Guards.
Your Crimson Guards.
Did you not get yours?
No, I have 4 pre-ordered and they didn't ship mine.
Did you tell them that you do a podcast about G.I. Joe?
I did. Surprisingly, they didn't care.
Hey, I forgot to mention this, but there were a few people that approached me at the Cincinnati Comic Expo that were listeners to the show. And
no way.
I was so unprepared for that. I had not even factored in that would even feasibly happen. That all of the people that I interacted with, I just thought were people that also liked G.I. Joe, that wanted to talk to me about G.I. Joe. Because I'm telegraphing it, right? I have a G.I. Joe tattoo. Yeah. I'm wearing a G.I. Joe shirt. Like, I'm all decked out. I'm carrying all G.I. Joe stuff. So it's natural that somebody goes, oh, you like G.I. Joe? And then that's like, you might as well. I'm like a Christmas tree. I'm like, yeah, let's talk about it. So thank you to the people that were like, thank you, that were listeners of the show that came up and talked. I really enjoyed that. I really wish Jaren had been there because Jaren is like Jaren is my people person. It's difficult for me to talk to people. I don't know why. That's why I rely on Jaren to be the social dude. But I was like, my friend that was with me was like, that guy said he was a big fan of your show. And I was like, did he?
That's awesome.
So thank you to the people that came and said hey and chatted. Sorry I didn't get your names. I was, again, just not good at making talky words come out of mouth hole. Let's wrap up with some mail. Mail call. This email comes to us from Patrick Davis. He writes, hello, Greg and Jaren. My name is Patrick Davis, and I'm reaching out to introduce myself and ask a few questions. As someone who grew up in the 80s and is a big fan of G.I. Joe, I found your podcast on Apple Podcasts, and I found it extremely helpful and enjoyable to listen to. Your passion for the line really comes through. Thanks, Patrick. While I'm not near the collector or expert that you are, I'm proud of what I've accumulated and in my growing depth of knowledge. It took me several years and hundred of dollar boxes at cons, but I've collected the entire original Marvel comic book run 1 through 155, and I'm actively working to complete my collection up to the upcoming issue 300, reading all of them along the way. I've also dabbled in buying figures and toys, but not nearly to the extent that you collect. But I'll say that I enjoy every purchase and find. I've really picked up on the classified line and even recently spoke with Emily and Lenny from Hasbro at SDCC on a variety of topics, like business models, supply chain, product management schedules, etc. I'm a bit of a business process nerd. That's very interesting. I felt that Lenny was really passionate about what he's doing with that line. I totally agree with that. I think they are very invested in it. With that said, I'd like to offer a few questions for you to consider, which Jaren and I will take on a case-by-case basis right now. Number 1. Would you be open to a guest appearance from someone like me that could offer the viewpoint of a more novice collector and ask questions that you could answer for listeners? Like, how did you get started collecting? What do you see the G.I. Joe collecting hobby evolving to? What are easy, logical jumping in opportunities for novice collectors? How best to look for deals in a market dominated by eBay hoarders, etc.? I think I pretty clearly established how bad I am at talking to strangers. But if that's something that Jaren is interested in, I think that's something we could throw around. I would actually think that the probably best way to handle it would be for the listeners to email us or leave us comments on our YouTube channel on questions that they would like to be answered, and then we could compile those all into a list, and then we'll read through them on the show. If that's something that you guys are interested in, if you have questions that you'd like to hear us talk about, by all means, send them in and we will respond. I have very much enjoyed having regular mail to go through, so keep it coming.
I absolutely love that he is a business process nerd. I think that's fascinating because While I am not as well versed as I'm sure he is, that stuff does intrigue me. I think it's fascinating. And I would love to get the chance to talk to him about it, because I also agree. Every chance I get to talk to Lenny and Emily, you can see the passion that they have from a lot of different aspects. I know we talked with Emily during the last roundtable, and she's taking over doing the D&D line as well. So Lenny's going to be focusing on G.I. Joe, I think, solely, unless they have some other announcement that they haven't made. It's cool to see how they are branching out and kind of reaching out. I think it's great that Lenny talked about doing the HasLab, and getting to hear him talk on that roundtable was really cool. So that's a lot of words to basically just say, oh, heck yeah, I love talking to people. So come talk to us.
We'll work something out. If you guys are interested in that, you don't have to wait. Send in your questions now. We'll start putting them together, and we'll make it happen. Number 2. Some of my favorite episodes are when you speak to recent adds to your collections from a show you have visited. Not knowing these shows existed, I had to do my internet research to figure out what you were referring to. Is it possible that you could speak to upcoming shows and how you stay abreast of these? Perhaps even speak to how you plan for these, like looking for items for your collection, looking for items for others, looking for items to flip, looking to connect with other collectors as dealers, etc. So I will say up front that What's on Joe Mind does a great job of listing a calendar schedule of shows that are coming up. That's something that you're interested in. They cover it pretty early on in the show, or they had been recently. My only concern about this question, which is I feel very valid, and I certainly would consider things like how I plan for a con, because I'm pretty detail oriented when it comes to that stuff. My only concern is that Jaren and I, me especially, I really only attend conventions that are located extremely close to me. Like if it's more than 90 minutes out of my way, it's not even like a consideration. There's just too much going on at my home. I have too much stuff to do. So I'm concerned that I would be discussing shows that are so localized that I'm alienating a part of the audience. But again, if it's something that you guys are interested in, you write it in and we'll work it out. I have no issues with compiling like shows that are going on around at least the US, and who's going to be there of notice. Anytime I'm going to a show, the first thing I do is I search every name there against my comic book collection to see if they've worked on anything G.I. Joe related, because that's like my number one priority. And if they have, then I pull it and I'm like, all right, that's on my to-do list. Doesn't matter if they only inked one issue. I'm just like, that's has always been my number one thing, is getting people to sign Joe books. I'll put a pin in this, and we'll come back to it. But I will definitely talk about how I prep for a con, and what I look for when I'm there, and what my initiatives are. I've been going to cons for over 20 years, and although I'm not, I'm still just a fan and an enthusiast, I have definitely learned a lot about how you should tackle a convention in the most efficient way.
I'll go ahead and clue everybody in on my con process. It's formulate a plan as you're walking in. As soon as you see everything, throw out the plan and just go wild.
I don't know anybody that brings as many comics to a convention as I do. I mean, except for the creeps that bring full long boxes. I always have a backpack that's filled down, and by the time the day is over, it feels like my back is splitting in half. It's so much weight to carry for so long. We'll come back to it and talk about it, because I do think that's interesting. Number 3. What are your recommendations for communities, websites, and knowledge bases, social media shows, fan clubs, etc., that novice collectors should consider joining, and why? This is a little tougher, I guess. Social media, is a bit of a cesspool, but there are a lot of very good Facebook groups that are G.I. Joe oriented for either buying and selling, and trading, or discussion. And you have to decide if you're only interested in one or both of those things, and then you're going to have to seek out. You'll have to do a bit of a test run. Twitter, I feel actually a little differently about. Twitter, which is, pretty notorious for being the worst people, actually has a really great G.I. Joe community. I'm thinking of G.I. Joe Repair Shop and Boil and Pop. A lot of the good G.I. Joe podcasts and shows, they have really great and active Twitters. If you just go on Twitter and look for the G.I. Joe hashtag, which I try to use on all of our posts, you'll probably see a huge selection of anything from the wonderful photography of Mate Mylar to the G.I. Joe cartoon, or a string of commercials. The G.I. Joe community on Twitter I think is pretty solid. And I would assume, Jaren, you would speak prominently on Instagram as well, since you run that account.
Yeah, I think Instagram's a really cool place. Instagram, I think, is a little bit more segmented, so not as just because of the nature of the page and the way the platform works. But like, there's a lot of really great people that I have on here or on Instagram. If you go to our page and you follow pretty much any of the accounts we follow, you're gonna have a good time. I normally try to only follow people that are positive. A big thing for me is I collect toys because I want to be positive and have a good time. So I try not to follow a lot of people that are just posting negative. Not all. One negative thing every once in a while is not bad. But if you're just miserable in toy collecting, why would you continue to do so? So there's people like Dustin McCoy is my favorite person to follow on Instagram. I think, or pretty close to being up top, just because he posts so often and is so talented in what he does. If you like toy photography and vintage Joes, he does a phenomenal job with that.
Dustin is a wonderful dude, is a friend of the show. You're right, does lots of photography, uses lots of different characters, which I'm a big fan of. Always has a little bit of like, this is what's going on in this shot to kind of like set the scene. Big fan of that. I want to go back before we move on to the last question and say that actually my advice for novice collectors that are getting into social media is go on Facebook, search for the word G.I. Joe, join every group that you can get in. And then as that feed fills up, every time you see something that you're like, this is dumb or stupid, mute it or just leave. And then eventually you'll finally have whittled it down to the groups that you can tolerate, because it is a bit of a sawtooth between nothing's allowed to literally everything's allowed. Question number 4. What are your thoughts on the growing custom figure market and how it has changed the collector landscape? What is the impact of now being able to complete a vintage toy or figure with a 3D printed component? Do you see this as value add or value diminish? I am pretty repro in terms of 3D printed components. I believe that in the, as the line continues and the vintage figures will continue to break down, it's inevitable that smaller and often broken pieces, parts that were just not designed to survive for 30, 40 years, will just start to cease to be. That the 3D production market will be the only way that people can continue to complete their collections. I know, we've talked at length in our repro episode about how that's a slippery slope to deception, that's selling things that are authentic that aren't. And I think it's worth the risk, frankly. People are going to get burnt, but you can get burnt without there's always going to be some scam. You just have to be careful, do your research, and try not to beat yourself up if you get hit. I think everybody's probably been scammed one way or the other in the business. It happens to everybody. The flip side of that is that I personally have brought dozens of vehicles up to 100% completion in the time that it would take, in the finances that would take for me to complete one thing. My collection is so diverse that I'm always working on multiple things at once. I'm trying to complete this vehicle, but I've got, hundreds of figures that are incomplete. So if I can bridge that gap in finances at all, that's fine. It doesn't have to be authentic for me to be pleased with it. And if it does have to be authentic, then that's fine. I'll pay it and buy it. But to this point, there are very few things in this collection that have to be an original, when a repro part will do the same thing, essentially. I don't even honestly mind if they're different colors to designate that they're different. I bought some Tomahawk repro blades because I could not get mine to straighten out the way I wanted them to, and they were significantly darker. They're basically black and the rotor is gray, so they don't match. But you know what they do? They spin, and they don't clip the old chopper in half because they're drooping so low. So I'm pro repro all the way, 100%. I'll accept the risk, basically, to keep it going. Now, in terms of the custom figure market, I think that we have been lucky that the custom figure market has actually been as transparent as it has been. Even a figure like Black Major, who can pop out, a 1/1 replica of a Starduster, has the decency to, reverse the rivets. He's putting signs in these figures that they are not the authentics. He's not trying to scam anybody. He's just making them for people that can't afford a Starduster. Or, he also goes outside the box and makes figures in different color configurations, which I like even more. Obviously, there's no confusion there. if you've got an all black Night Viper, that's not something that you got through the store. That's a Black Major original. And I'm using Black Major as an example because he's one of my favorite producers of parts like this. But Red Laser, all these other guys, I think their stuff is all pretty much the same. So I think the custom figure market is perfectly fine. If you got hosed on a Starduster or you bought one that's bad, I'm not going to say it's your fault, because I understand that sometimes the level of research is pretty intricate for originals versus printed. But certainly, if you can have it in your hand, I think you can tell. I think those figures in hand are not even close to what the originals feel like. Sorry, I'm getting long-winded about it. I think it's only positives for the community in an era where we face the extinction of our childhood plastic at some point. It's nice to know that there are new plastics that can keep it alive, even if it's just for a little bit longer. Jaren, do you have any thoughts on that?
I pretty much echo your sentiments. I think anyone who's listened to this show long enough know that we're a Pro Joe Repro show. So,
welcome to the Pro Joe Repro show. I'm Joe.
I think the custom figure market is amazing because there's a couple figures that I sent to our little group the other day that somebody had made a custom, basically like a Street Thug, Destro, and Cobra Commander out of some McFarlane figures. And customizing for 6-inch is where I like to dip my toes into a little more. If I'm buying a 3 3/4, I would prefer it to be an actual vintage figure. I don't buy a whole lot of secondary figures, but the 6-inch market, you have people like Gridiron Props and Marauders doing accessories, and then people that do custom heads. I think overall it's a net positive because it's just another way to be creative. And I think for the most part, people are pretty transparent about what they're doing and how they're doing it. And then the community aspect of it, getting to see people interact. Because there's a lot of people I follow that do things that I would not have a chance to ever create. But getting to see those creations, it's really cool. It's a really phenomenal part. And that's a really fun aspect of the community that you can experience. Now, there's some that are really toxic, but a lot of people on there are really just trying to have a good time and talk about things that they enjoy and creating something that, even if it's something simple like a color swap that would fit in with a different story that they're wanting to tell, is just really cool.
I would summarize this by saying that I think that 3D printing in general is a great thing for the hobby and will only continue to reap benefits from it in the long term. I'm not even going to get into all the amazing 3D printed stuff that is compatible with G.I. Joe, that is original stuff. I'm talking like snake chairs for Cobra Commander to sit in.
Yeah.
I'm talking about crates that have the Cobra logo, like actually printed on them. That stuff's all really, really above and beyond. If you don't like repro stuff and you're a authentic collector only, then I understand. I get it. It's your thing, and you want it to all be authentic. But I don't think it's appropriate to throw shade on people that can't afford to collect at that level and are just trying to be as complete as possible within their budget.
Or you have people like me who I would rather have, not rather, but if I have something that is sitting there and one has repro parts and one doesn't, I would rather take the one with the repro parts because I know that my kids will get a hold of a lot of the toys that I have. I know that I like to, up until I've been renovating my basement, I would like to get my toys out and take them into ponds and fields and creeks and all those different things. So, like that Mauler I have it's the solid base of it is original parts, but all of the little easy breakable parts are all repro, and I'm completely happy with that. Because if I break it, I'm not sick that, oh man, there's something that maybe somebody really wanted that I've broken now.
Yeah, I'm not even factoring into that. We have not simply answered any question. I'll just say, if you're a new collector, you're thinking about buying something that's expensive for you, whatever that may be, take some time and do some research on your item. Look at what sold listings go for. See if you can find a bootleg. So people that will sell Black Major parts and they'll list them as Black Major, they're being upfront about it. And so you could see what a knockoff looks like up close. Usually they're pretty quality pictures and you can compare to what you're looking at. Rest assured, you're probably not the only person that will get suckered. So sometimes you'll see auctions that are clearly not the original piece that are going for, 100% more than its value because other people are falling for it. So just take your time, do your research. If you have doubts, pass. There'll always be another one. You might even get a better deal on it. Don't take a chance and then get disappointed. Just a few questions that I hope you consider. I look forward to hearing from you. And again, want to say that I enjoy the podcast. Thanks so much. Patrick attaches a link. And as I said, if we'd like to ask him further questions, he'd be happy to jump on and talk to us. Well, we might come back with that. I would be interested in hearing what Lenny had to say about business models, supply chains and stuff, what they were willing to discuss with the public in general, how they're, have a pretty good reputation of being transparent. So yeah, I'd like to hear some thoughts on that. Thanks so much for writing in, Patrick. If you'd like to write into us and maybe have a chance to have your letter read on the show, you can write to us at anythingjoespodcast@gmail.com or anythingjoespod@gmail.com. You can find us on social media. That's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at anythingjoespod. And you can find our YouTube channel just at anythingjoes. We want to thank you so much for listening today. We'll be back in 2 short weeks where we're going to get back into the Marvel comic book run with G.I. Joe number 14. It's the final reveal of Destro. His face will be revealed. It's been 40 years and we've waited so long to see. No, I'm just kidding. We all know what it looks like, but they don't. So let's travel back in time and see how everybody reacts to James McCullen's shiny noggin. We look forward to talking to you then in just 2 short weeks, or anything's available for discussion here on Anything Joe's.